Peace is one of the most valuable commodities we can possibly imagine. The most difficult part is it's very hard to attain. Everybody's watching you from your work, your job. That Teams is watching you. You're watched at home. You're watched in traffic. You're watched just about everywhere. Why do you think a lot of people just elect to move away? Move to the bush, somewhere quiet and peaceful where maybe the birds are the only things watching you. See, because a lot of us go through our lives not even necessarily paying attention, but everybody's paying attention to us. And while we think we have peace, in our younger years, we're faced with work, chaos, toxic people, and drama. A lot of us have a lot of drama in our lives and chaos, whether it's even just hustling around, getting the young ones to school, or even just getting to work on time and racing through traffic because you're a few minutes late. Or on top of it, now with the modern technology like Teams, you log in. As soon as you open your laptop, your computer's watching you. As a matter of fact, as soon as it sees that you've taken your hand off the keys or off the mouse, it starts to understand that, wait a minute, the behavior suggests that this person either A, is not working or not nearby. And peace, as such a simple term and a phrase and a phenomenon that we think is so easy to achieve. The bottom line is, very few people like you and I are actually able to achieve peace. Welcome back to the hustle, everybody. Welcome back to the grind. I wanted to talk a little bit today, a little bit more open, candid conversation, a little less structured. I want to talk about this. It's a bit of a vent, if you will. But a lot of us, just seek peace. We don't want that chaos. When we're young, it doesn't matter. You're out there energized. You've got friends, activities, work, climbing the ladders. You're moving around and moving and shaking, and things are fine. Of course, there's no peace that goes with that. But that's okay. When you're young, it doesn't seem to matter. As we age, now in my retirement years, it's not a matter of being paranoid. Not at all. But when you really sit back and think about the fact that you don't truly have peace, because everybody is watching you. As I'm walking right now, I promise you, sometimes I catch myself, I look over at a house and there's somebody peering out their window. A lot of times you walk up to at the intersection, you're crossing the street. There's cameras staring down at you. Sometimes I've even been sitting in traffic and I look over and to be shocked that somebody's staring at me. It doesn't seem to matter, even with social media and everybody carries a phone these days. You're always being watched. The worst part is, even more so when you're at work and you're being judged and your performance is being directly correlated to the fact of this technology that's able to watch you and observe you. Ask yourself why so many people value being alone. Why is being alone also a strong attribute? Something that is very, very tough and difficult to sometimes attain. Yeah, a lot of people say, they'd rather be alone. They don't want to have toxic people in their lives. There's a variety of reasons why that is. Some of it, of course, is just they don't want to be disrupted. They don't want the peace to be taken from them. They'd much rather just enjoy their lives in their own simple ways. And the problem is, as soon as you introduce people, toxic people, technology, we're being watched. Have you ever looked at your phone? Look down at some of these phones and all of a sudden there's that little dot at the top. It's sort of observing you. Have you ever also asked yourself, with your cell phone, you've had a conversation with somebody, you're out driving along and you have a conversation with a friend, coworker, spouse, and you say something like, yeah, I think we should go camping this weekend. You just start up an average conversation. Yeah, let's go camping. Why don't we got to get a new tent. Next thing you know, what you find is you go to pick up your phone 10 minutes later, and all of a sudden there's an advertisement popping up for tents for sale at a big department store nearby. See, this is what's so odd to me is it doesn't matter where you think you are truly alone. The fact is you're not. You're always being watched. You're being observed. They say, a lot of people back in the day, I think back many moons ago, when I was young and we had friends that liked to kind of drive around and they'd have fun in their cars a little bit and we'd go cruising on a Saturday night. Sometimes they'd get a little kind of hairy scary on that. But it was all in good fun. And you know what? Nowadays, nothing goes unnoticed. You drive, you do one little thing, you change lanes without signaling. Next thing you know, you're on social media. I look on FB all the time and I see all kinds of conversation. Some of it's good because a lot of it is an enlightenment to let people know that, hey, hang on, I saw a shady looking character in the neighborhood. It gets people notified, lets people know what's going on in a negative way. And so that can be good. There's a lot of benefits in having a lot of this technology that's watching us, whether it's, the Ring cameras or security cameras, or whether it's your phone. Somebody catches something always. I mean, you think of some of the insane social media posts these days with crazy events and chaos and accidents and all kinds of strange things. How did that happen? Well, it's not like the press of old days where you'd have to have an official camera person there. No, it doesn't work like that anymore, because now some of the most interesting clips that we find on social media are from somebody who took a short video, a 12-second video with their cell phone, because we're all being watched. And while there are a lot of benefits, you see these posts on social media. Oh, hey, like I said, I'm part of a lot of these groups, these community groups in my neighborhood, because it's kind of nice to know anything from, hey, do you have a good mechanic in your area, to, hey, my dentist did a great job, I recommend that person, or to also, hey, there was somebody rummaging around in our backyard and they have a red toque and a fluorescent orange jacket. See, it doesn't matter what it is. The point is, there's always somebody paying attention, watching you. See, I could be out watching somebody else, but there's somebody behind me watching me. And well, in a lot of ways, that provides benefits, clearly, if, for malicious intent and people that aren't necessarily, doing things on the straight and narrow. The point of the matter is, a lot of these folks out there are recording you, whether you like it or not. I think back in my career many years ago, sitting in front of my desk, and, they introduced Teams. They used to use a different type of software that was sort of integrated. It's sort of a workflow software back in the day, with timesheets, and it would have your calendar and all of the emails and all of that sort of balled into one. Then they switched over to Teams. Everybody likes Teams. Everybody's getting onto Teams. Sure, Teams is easy to use, right? You have meetings, you have scheduling, you have a lot of great features and emails and all of that greatness, right? Great workflow tool. Yeah, until you're being watched. See, because a lot of what's happening now is these are yet more tools. We look at a lot of these jobs, and these jobs that we have now are all monitored. They're monitored in different ways. We have now, some of the senior VPs like to have their eye on the prize. They like to know where the inefficiencies are in a company, in a business. A lot of that comes with things like KPIs, key point indicators, which monitors your success, your hits, your misses, your wins, your losses, percentages, numbers, gains. It's all of the facts, the figures. It's no different than watching a hockey game or watching your favorite hockey player. They have their numbers, their stats, kind of tells their goals and assists and points against, and, all these games, wins, loss, ties, all of those stats. People are very driven by stats, numbers, figures. People want information. But sometimes that gets a little carried away, because these KPIs, while they can be a good measure for a tool for productivity and help companies get better and smarter and faster, the drawback is often it's also used in more malicious ways. Just like FB, where a lot of times people are taking pictures of you and posting you, even if you're not doing something way out in left field. See, a lot of times these are big problems, and they're building and they're mounting. And is it any wonder why morale is going to the toilet? Not really. See, I started to see where I was working, morale was sliding, because it seemed like a new technology, a new application meant that the company had more eyes on you. They had a visibility that they didn't have 5 years ago. Even when they first gave you your first cell phone, you go back 15 years, you didn't have company phones. Then, of course, they say, hey, here's a new set of phones. Started out with things like the flip phones, moved into Blackberries, and then iPhones. Oh, it's a great tool. Yeah, anytime you want to check your emails, you can even use it for personal use. They kind of sold it in a way that made it sound positive. It was a win, until it wasn't. Because as time went on, then you had to start signing disclosures to say, hey, any information on these used devices can be used against you. And these are a nice friendly reminder after a period of time that these were actually not just cell phones, they were actually a company asset, and any use or misuse could result in termination. So this whole concept of KPIs and phones that are always constantly monitoring us meant that we're always under the radar. We're always being watched. And a lot of people just simply don't want that. They want to walk away from that. And that's something that I found in my life too. As time got on and on, life, not just in general, but life at work became far more complicated. You now knew that your phone was watching you, your company was watching you through KPIs, through your cell phones, through your emails. You couldn't just delete it because then it went to the abyss somewhere and IT still had it. So if you send something or you search something and you thought you deleted it off your computer, think again. Not such is the case. But the bigger issue is not such working and, we all come and go, and maybe a lot of you don't even deal with laptops in that corporate world, so it's really irrelevant. But the point is that the watching, the observations that society has on us, it's consistent. It's happening each and every day. Like I said, even cameras, you've got cameras, backup cameras, you've got cameras on the highways, the sides of the roads. You've got cameras literally just about everywhere that's watching you, your every move, how you're driving, what you're doing. The worst part is now, without going down that whole road and that path, the whole conversation now about cars. Have you heard the latest? In 2027, they're saying they're starting to mandate technology that monitors your behavior. Are you getting sleepy? Are you getting drowsy? Are you intoxicated? Are you getting stressed out and your eyes are wide? It's monitoring your behavior. I've heard already some horror stories of how cars have reacted, cars that have already started to implement some of this technology. I've heard of people who are well in the know in the industry, in the car space, that say the technology, understandably, in some cases provides some benefits, but let's be honest, far more often, it's usually more of a sense of, limit and control. And it creates, again, a lack of peace in our life. You can't just go for that fun drive on a Saturday night anymore. If you don't have people with cell phones watching you at every corner as you're driving down the road, if you don't have photo radar hitting you with a camera as you go through the light, if you don't have, all kinds of cameras mounted on the sides of buildings in front of everybody's house, because just about every house nowadays has security cameras, which again, sadly, it's a sign of the time. And as a result of a lot of people, of course, it feels like people are on edge in general, means that a lot of other people are now reacting to higher levels of crime. Hence, it seems like virtually every house now has a security camera on it. So it's a change. You walk down the road, you're being watched through the windows, through security cameras, cell phone, somebody driving by, cameras on the intersections, you're being watched. And now our cars are looking at watching us too. Because in 27, a lot of this technology that's going to be observing our eyes, our gestures, are going to be implemented. And now there are positive benefits. This isn't all about that. But the reality is we're being watched. And the more we're being watched, the more we can recognize that's going to be our demise. It's a sad, sad state, because what it ultimately means is when people are watching, sometimes they're doing it for reasons, for enforcement. Sometimes they're doing it for reasons of, just to collect some more information. Sometimes they're doing it for reasons that, it might even be just an understanding and learning technology, or just safety. Again, nobody wants to see anybody get behind the wheel when they're intoxicated. By no means, zero reason and justification for that. But it's sold on the premise of safety. The flip side is, it seems to be more and more invasive as we go along. And it seems like where it starts with good intent, it often expands into other places. That no longer means that you're on your own, you're isolated, you're by yourself. See, a lot of us enjoy being alone. A lot of us like those moments. A lot of us like being with friends and family, 100%. But there's those times it's nice to go for that quiet walk. Sad part is, as you walk, doesn't matter anywhere you go or drive, you're being observed, you're being watched, seen, cameras. Its peace is pretty much forfeited. It's just not a thing anymore. Peace is very, very difficult commodity to actually attain these days when you consider all this technology, like in your workplace, that is there to monitor and push you into things like KPIs, improvements, enhancements. Your performance conversation now is directly tied to those KPIs that are being monitored by your statistics or your your team's meeting, all of a sudden your supervisor pulls you into the office and says, hey, I noticed there was no activity on your computer for the last 3 hours. What were you up to? You had anything interesting on the go? And a lot of these modern managers and supervisors, they come at it with a very passive-aggressive statement. They kind of come at it in a way not very confrontational, but just for the sake that the question is being asked, it's quite obvious that you're being watched. So finding those moments to truly be alone is actually a very difficult discussion, very difficult commodity to attain. See, just as I was walking along vlogging, somebody just literally walked by, and that's cool. This is public. We share the space. But again, you're never truly alone. How do you find peace? You've got to find peace within. But because sadly, that's so hard to find, the reality is living life in a toxic world with people that want a piece of you on every corner. See, people, whether they're watching you for technological reasons or law enforcement, or whether they want to watch you because of, your performance attributes, that's one thing. But people are also watching to understand what you're doing. See, even if you're at a family function, you're sitting at a kitchen table and happen to start talking with one family member over here and another family member is just sitting quietly on the other side, please tell me I'm wrong. I've seen this time and time again where people, all of a sudden they perk up their ears, they're listening to your conversation. You could be going on about some new toy that you're thinking about buying. You've been shopping around and there's a few different things and options. Maybe you're looking at a series of these new cameras and I heard this camera is the latest and the greatest and it does X, Y, Z and 1, 2, 3. Meantime, other family person is watching you. You don't think you're being watched, but you are. Sometimes it's just curiosity, but I've personally experienced sometimes it's not. Sometimes it goes beyond that. Because it's like we say, a lot of times people generally either one of two things. They hate you because you're doing well, or they feel better because you're not. And either way, it's a difficult position to be in. But I've also shared examples of things and why you should never tell anybody. Don't tell people your plans. Don't tell people any big moves or how much you've saved or your next big job opportunity or a business you're about to start. Because exposing any of that can absolutely be undermining. But even as much as having a quiet conversation between, 3 or 4 or 5 people, realize this, that sometimes there's other people listening that aren't necessarily part of that conversation. As I've said, it seems a society today where you're being watched, whether it's at work, on the roads, even at home. Being watched is something that's not new. People are always curious about what you're up to. That's always been a thing. But more and more now with advanced technology, AI, automation, and now more motivation for work to streamline their workspace, to find opportunities and excuses and justifications to let mass volumes of people go. Technology is now implemented in finding ways to cut people loose. It's an interesting time, and I'd like to hear your thoughts more on this whole concept of finding peace and the fact that peace is something that's very, very difficult to find today. The simple fact that virtually everybody is watching your every move.